Thanks. All right. All right, yeah, so just for the recording, this is our very fine release bi-weekly UX meeting. And yeah, Kayana, over to you then.
Yes, I added here the agenda. My point is about competitive analysis. I just want to share a little bit of how we are doing it in release management, because I know that, let me leave Nadia's issue here, or actually, can you find Nadia the issue about the strategy? Just so that we have a reference.
That's the strategic one.
Yeah, I found it.
Found it, yeah.
The strategic UX. And one of the items that Nadia added there was competition analysis. So for UX, do a deep dive to understand the competition as something that helps us drive or design decisions, so be more informed about those. And we are already doing competitive analysis on release management, mostly as a product manager's responsibility. So my first item is that I want to just highlight the importance of finding the efficiency for the right group. And the process I'm gonna talk about here, it's not like prescribing anything to you folks, but I want to just highlight the learnings and the process to see how, you know, you can share the learnings and share the positives. I understand competitive analysis as something that it's not the UXer responsibility, unless we are talking about competitive analysis from a UI point of view. But when it's business and it's strategy, it's something that PMs need to conduct. And actually they own this on the handbook page. If you go to the sections of each stage group, that information is there. And I think we can leverage from that information and those insights. So that's what I want to be talking a little bit about today. So yes, a process as it is today. Jackie performs competitive analysis to understand the feature sets and the user experience of our competitors. And she documents the analysis on an epic. So I link here. Actually, let me share my screen so that I can actually show.
Yeah, that epic actually looks really cool.
Let me share here. Can you folks see the notes? Yeah. So she shares and she documents in an epic. So for example, there's a video to explain all this, but this table, it's our main competitors for release management and release orchestration. And she already did the competitive analysis for each of these tools. And here's the criteria that she finds important and rate, as in, does GitLab has automation deployment, or is a dev-centric product? Yes or no? And it's listed here. So this is where it lives on GitLab. And currently, she just finished working on the Zebia Labs, the Excel tool comparison. And she documents each finding or each criteria in a different issue within the epic. So let me open up one here. Oh, hey, Jackie. I'm explaining your work, so please feel free to jump in and correct me.
Will do, will do.
So in the issue, Jackie documents the findings, the product review, and items to keep in mind from a business point of view. And one thing that we did that was super interesting was to record a walkthrough. So I asked Jackie to, next time you do a comparison or you go through the product, please record, because I want to see what you're thinking about and what you find interesting and important, because that's, yeah, I love reading, but we know that it gets tiring at some point with GitLab. So a video was awesome. I'm not gonna open here, I don't want it to play. To document not just the competitive analysis itself, but also Jackie's thinking. And we also discussed how this process works. So there is also a documentation on that. But another thing I wanted to highlight here is that all of these insights, they get translated into the competitive landscape pages on GitLab. So if you go to, for example, I don't know, progressive delivery, merge trains, you should have something similar, because your PM is writing this information and it's stored there. And also we have, if you also look at these pages on DevOps tool comparison, you can see all the information, in this case for Xebia Labs, for the features that they have compared to what GitLab has, what is supported. So all those tools, all this information is really useful to me when I want to look at how can I meet the UX strategy and what parts of this those findings I can bring back to my work. So Jackie shared with me, I think this week, right, Jackie, we had a discussion about the video. Yeah.
Yes.
About the findings, and then I highlighted some of the discussions, and next week I'm chatting with Nadia also to gain her insight, her technical insight, but from a user experience point of view. And next steps is just really look at what's next for us and see what can we iterate with those learnings for the issues that are open or issues that that we logged on the UXR insights, etc.
Yeah,
to me, this is really, yeah, go ahead.
Something that I really loved about this process in collaboration with design is I don't ever want to be in a feature war with a competitor. I want to solve the problem, not repeat the solution that the competitor has. And Hayana has a lot of strength in kind of creatively looking at how to connect our application in an end-to-end way to solve a problem that Xebia Labs is solving in a very straightforward but also ultra customized way. So Xebia Labs is really customizable and it's very flexible, quote unquote, because you get to build it however you want it, whereas our tool is meant to not have enforced workflows and to be sustainable and scalable and effective and efficient for each user. So I loved having the conversations from a design perspective because I was able to bring, hey, in my experience with the market, this is what's being solved by Xebia Labs. And then Hayana was able to complement that with well, this is how GitLab works and how we could also solve this problem.
Yeah, and I find it very valuable as well because I can get the business perspective, right? If I conduct, for example, a competitive analysis on Xebia Labs, I will most likely only focus on the UI UX. And that's only one of the flavors of this analysis. So that going back to my initial point, I think this is a partnership process that we cannot just say, here, designers are now responsible for competitive analysis or just PM. We need to find a way to kind of like build this two-way straight process. And I think in general for us, very organic because I'm curious. So I asked Jackie to include me on everything. And let me see what's the next step. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what works for us. I think what really worked was a deep dive on Jackie's process to understand what she's looking at and how much time does it take for you? What do you read? For example, you say that you go through the documentation and you go on the trying to find the keywords in their docs or on the sales page, right? The marketing pages to see how that compares with the offering that GitLab has. So to me, that was very interesting. And as I mentioned, I think getting involved in every step or trying to get involved in every step of the product management workflow, it's super helpful. For example, when a maturity page gets updated or when Jackie makes an update on the vision and strategy or the competitive landscape that relates to the UX, and in a way, everything relates to the user experience, I'm involved in the review, or at least I'm there to check what's changing, because maybe this competitive analysis that she did now might be different or irrelevant in 6 months time. So to me, it's important to stay in the loop and to consider what's next all the time. And I added here some of the things that we need to consider that I think we can get better at. It's, for me, using the competitor's product. We have a local instance for Jira, and I try using that. But again, if I don't have the use cases, or if I don't have specific workflows that I should be looking at, I'll just gonna be doing a heuristic evaluation of the UI. So the goals need to be very well defined for the tasks that we want to give designers, I think, for this analysis. And this is something that we're already looking at, but to investigate specific workflows that we find important to the product and learn from our competitors editors. For example, we talked about how Zebia Labs does the templates for releases. So it will be awesome to make some, more granular investigation on tools and capabilities once we get to the point where, now this is something interesting. Let's look at that offering. So, but I think that moving forward, it's just about keep doing what we're doing and getting more context, because even looking at the application from someone else's point of view, it's so much more valuable, like from a product manager, or Jackie used to do release management as well, right, in the past. So it brings more context than just doing a UX evaluation. And now, please, if you have questions, let's chat. I've been talking for too long.
What do you wish that I did better throughout this process as a product manager? What do you wish I was doing?
I think everything all the information that I consume so far is valuable in the process itself. I don't think there's anything, but maybe we can look into how do we keep track of the next steps. For example, I know that you're evaluating all this, but what are the other things that you're planning for example, different tools, right? And where are you at? So that by the time I consume, for example, the information about Zebia Labs, I am empowered to jump into the next one with more context. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, so thanks, Hannah, for walking through that. So the initial idea for why we decided to bring this up as well today, I really like this pairing up of PM and UX. Like, I feel like that's a really nice example of like a strong collaboration there in one looking into the competition, because I feel like there is a lot of ideas can be for us taken as a product designers for when trying somebody else's solutions and like seeing what works better, what works worse. Juan, you did similar thing with that runner.com analysis. Maybe that's also another for another time to showcase how you've done through that process, because you also have a special approach there. You create the flows, you come up with the user flow. So it would be really nice as maybe for the next meeting to show there as well. So basically, I really like this example of as a collaboration, and it would be nice. Maybe this is a way for us to push other PMs also, like to involve us into this kind of things, because I think this is very important. Just like Hayana said, I think this is not something that we as UX separately can do, but it's really nice if our the product managers are involving us into these kind of activities.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting part so far has been the recording, right? Because it's really complete. So maybe what's something that we can ask from PMs next time when they're looking at tools and different offerings to just record themselves. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can gain more insights on what they're looking at and what kind of the rationale that they had behind the content that they upload to the handbook. I think that's valuable because the handbook gets updated so often, but I find the process or the thinking behind it much more interesting because it gives you more perspective on how I can collaborate with you, right? So if I know that, for example, Jackie is very interested in the tables. I think that was something on the last that you show about the table and the different views, because for release managers, it's super interesting. Okay, I already got that. I could see the reaction. It's not just a page. And we're all used to recording ourselves all day anyway, so I think it would hurt.
I find this very interesting because I think you mentioned something at the beginning, which is this process. It's basically at this point is mostly the research, competitive research part is mostly driven by Jackie, and then you collaborate on that, like on the output of what Jackie goes and finds, in those competitors. But I think what's interesting is that I think my UX process is very competitor research oriented. I don't know why, but I have been doing that for a while, which is kind of funny. When I work at AWS, I was doing code pipeline, and I will go and look at GitLab, to see what they were doing. And I was like, oh, I like this. And I will leverage ideas that GitLab was doing. And I mean, one of the reasons why I applied to GitLab was because I actually liked a lot of the things that GitLab was doing, So it's interesting because my process relies a lot on looking, not because I'm not original and I cannot come up with my own ideas, but
No, I love what you're saying, Juan. Your vulnerability here is really good, because as a product manager, I've been coached to always not take the solution that our competitors using at face value, because you have no idea how they arrived there. But when you're looking at it from a design perspective, you're almost consuming it as a firsthand user, and
exactly.
Hey, this is my subjective evaluation of this as a firsthand user. Whereas from a product brand, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a copycat.
Exactly.
It really isn't about being original. It's about how does this satisfy the user's experience? And that's a really cool criteria to look at.
So something that I will do a lot in my process is that I do this at GitLab, but I will do this in the past as well, is go and look, like, I don't know, Hacker News threads where they are talking about CI/CD, and then people start saying, what I love about Jenkins is that Jenkins allows me to do this. I love what about CVA is that CVA allows me to do this. And then I will start kind of like digging deeper into that. Why do they like that? At the end of the day, I'm not interested in producing like an idea that looks super original. What I'm like trying to do is produce something that it's what's addressing the issues and the pains that the customer is having, And sometimes
how do you anchor yourself back? How do you bring yourself back to the problem? Because sometimes the way that competitors solve the problems are very sexy and original.
Yeah.
And it gets stuck in your head as like, that's the only way to solve it. How do you anchor yourself back to the customer's problem?
That's a great question. I think that's one of the other reasons why I like GitLab, is that GitLab is very job to be done oriented, and my process has been always very job to be done oriented. So the way that I bring myself back is, I don't care about the solution that the competitor is doing in that sense of like, oh, they make it super pretty or whatever. It's more about like, is this actually solving the job to be done of the customer, And I know, like, for instance, code pipeline, I compare it to what GitLab is doing, and I hate it now. And I work in that tool, and there's many things that I hate about working with that team that have nothing to do with the tool. But like, what's interesting is that for me, it was more like, if I look at this tool, I want to understand what they're doing good, just so I can understand why it's helping the customer. It's not because we want to go and beat them at this particular feature, it's mostly because if the customer is expressing that they like that, or they're leveraging the certain feature in a certain way, it means that we're blocking on that area, right? So I think I bring always myself back to trying to understand the customer, right? If the customer is having pains and like he's expressing this in forums online, and when you talk with them in calls, they are saying like, I hate these and I like these, I think it always comes to being customer oriented and always thinking about the customer, not thinking about the competitor, because you could be product oriented, customer oriented, you could be competitor oriented. There's companies, I think Oracle is like a perfect example of a company that is very competitor oriented and sales oriented, But I think at GitLab, I like to think that we are customer obsessed, and that we go and then we try to do what's right for the customer,
I also think an advantage of GitLab that's very unique to our position is that we started from this developer-centric view, and now we're trying to attack adjacencies. So naturally, we're going for breadth versus vertical depth. Right. In other companies, when you're first to market with a solution, you have a lot of leeway and flexibility to build it, and they will come. So
Yeah.
your user base, your revenue will have an exponential curve, and then it'll flatten out, and then it'll start declining because the other entrants to the market will start eroding your customer base.
Totally.
That's what's happening with Zevia Labs right now. We are the entrant that's going to start tearing down Zevia Labs' revenue because we're going to solve their problems better and more creatively, because they've already solved the whole build it, they will come. They may not
Right.
have validated anything, but we know how users like and don't like Zevia Labs. Jenkins is in the exact same boat. So
Yeah.
that's the opportunity we have about being second and third to market, but also pivoting and changing our focus from the developer-centric view and the developer-centric jobs to be done to different personas, like the compliance persona, the SecOps persona, the release
Mhm.
manager persona.
Right.
It really affords us this opportunity to build solutions that aren't as linear or aren't as traditional, but also to leverage the upstream data that's built
Totally.
from a single application. So I think the partnership, to kind of close out on my thoughts here, the partnership between design and PM is, in competitive analysis, is necessary for where we're at in the market. I would say that in other jobs where I was a market leader and my product was a market leader and I didn't have to worry about the little ankle biters because I was winning the market, design didn't necessarily need to be on high alert for competitive analysis and didn't need to check my thoughts as much as we do here, because my
Right.
thoughts have to be checked, because my biases as a product manager on how I think the problem should be solved can be wrong and are
Right.
wrong lots of times.
Right.
And
Right.
Hayana does a really great job of being like, Jackie, that could be better, without me feeling like my ego's crushed. So it's a very delicate dance, but it's also
Right.
necessary for what we're doing here.
No, I think you put it pretty well. I'm just gonna add one more thought to that, is that when I do this process, I'm not necessarily always focusing on what Zevia doing, what Jenkins doing, what Azure DevOps is doing. That's fine. You know, you go and you look at what they're doing and you find interesting things, and then you create more knowledge of the problem space, and that's totally fine. And that's something that I encourage everyone to do. But something else that I do, which I don't know if many people do, is that I also go and look at completely different industries, right? So there's industries that they have different personas and have different problems, but they have kind of something that looks similar. The problem kind of looks similar if you start abstracting and like isolating the problems. You know, there's industries that also have issues with compliance. There's industries that also have issues with management of information and knowledge, you know, how to display information, complex information. Like for a pipeline, you don't need to grab inspiration from a competitor. You can just go and look at how consumer-oriented companies are doing that, because they also have problems when it comes to showing complex information, right? So I do that a lot to like kind of like drawing the parallels and try to abstract.
I love that you're saying that. I find I do that myself too. Like I was asking users, how do they consume news, and how important is notifications and alerts to them in their everyday life, because that's going to be a part of the greater context of how they receive GitLab information too.
Right.
So I completely
Exactly.
agree with your life story there. That's good.
Thanks for such lively discussion. I just want to make sure that we move on to the next topics. And before we move on, I just want to give maybe a couple of seconds or minutes. Mike, do you have anything to add on this topic? Like, curious if you ever had a competitive analysis done with like Ori. Do you think that's going to be useful, or just curious on your thoughts here before we move on?
I'm trying to think if we have been doing competitive analysis, but very ad hoc-y, kind of like without much process around it, more just like, you know, like the feature flag stuff. Obviously,
Or you've been excluded from it, because Ori's been neck deep in Spinnaker analysis.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that she definitely focuses on, but like, you know, and then there's other things that not. So like in the process of feature flags, you know, that was both of us. She was kind of looking at like, kind of like you're saying, more of a feature kind of like, you know, what do they offer? What do they don't? What do people want? While I was doing similar to what Juan was saying, you know, like how do they accomplish it? What kind of UIs are they doing? What kind of UI features, right? Filtering and type of things like that. So like most things when it comes to Orit and I, we don't do a great job of being organized and documenting, but yeah, we're definitely doing these types of things. And I agree with pretty much everything that was said, you know, like I think that is a great approach of don't just accept the solution or don't get into a feature war. I think that's fantastic. That's next level business stuff, right? Like that's how you win wars and things like that is looking at the solution. But also from the UI standpoint, you know, there is so much inspiration out there and draw from what you want and take the good and leave the bad. You know, you don't have to reinvent everything every time, but like you also don't have to accept just because this is how something is. Like you can push it and you can do it better. So it's always that balance of does this work? Yes. If not, no. And it's kind of one of my favorite things about design is getting to play that game, getting to look at somebody else's and say, I like that, I'm stealing it, or look at it and going like, that's trash, I'm gonna beat you on that.
Yeah, it's funny actually. In the process of the design sprints by Google Venture, this methodology that went viral and crazy during last couple of years, they are actually in the beginning of the brainstorming day. They have an activity of looking to competition or to similar businesses, but not with. I don't think you can steal actually, because for example, if looking at how even the same Zebra Labs versus GitLab are doing things, I don't think it would be even possible to do things in the same way, because the tools are completely different, and I don't feel like there's often a risk there. But indeed, like borrowing these nice ideas just for the to to release your creativity is really nice. I agree with you there, Mike.
Speaking of Google Ventures, I wonder if we still have like the recordings of this information that we generated when we had the pilot with the Google Ventures research guy, I don't know, Michael something, his name, because then we can bring that back to, and share with product, because I think that's also a good learning material. But I'm also very excited for you, Juan. Please bring next time or whenever you have the chance, a bit more of insights on your process, and also if you can show to us, the results, your findings. I'm super curious. I'd love to learn more.
For sure, I'll do that.
Thanks, Hannah, for sharing this. This was super nice.
I'm just going to go ahead to the next topic because I'm the only one that I'm owning this meeting today. Do you want to voice, Nadia, your title?
Yeah, just for the same reasoning. I've seen this way of how Diana and Jackie are like tracking the UX work and even experimenting with giving it weights. I know that we've been discussing in one-on-ones with pretty much everyone of you. This is the discussion that relates to that our UX planning board for the CI/CD and that UX planning XLS file that we have originally created. So I want to just maybe to have a little intro from Hayana to see what they are experimenting with in the release management, and basically just hear the thoughts. Thanks, Hayana.
Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. Let me first open.
Gonna be right back.
Is this the issue? Yes. All right. So I think we mentioned this a couple of times already, but I just want to give you a walkthrough of how we're using this Epic to track our upcoming UX, current and upcoming UX efforts for release management. I think it's been maybe almost 2 months. I don't touch issue boards, so that's awesome. I don't have to be asking, did this priority order change, or is this ready for UX? No, not anymore. So we have this Epic that Jackie created, and pretty much it has the issues and epics that need my attention. So the criteria here is that anything that it's still in the planning board. So I don't go to the planning board, but things that are in planning and under UX, the UX label can be added here. And these are the issues that, for example, we have some items on 13.0 and some things that are in the backlog, but essentially are the big questions that need UX answers or that needs UX attention. So whatever that it's in development or is ready for implementation, it's removed from here. And one of the things I find very useful is that it keeps my attention like focused on only one place. Because it's so easy, for example, to go to an issue here and then just change the epic, and then you immediately assign this to as need UX review. So that's super useful. And I think it's also an easy way to do, but also because it makes it easier to have a conversation with Jackie about priorities. So the learnings that I added here, and I think that what works for us is that we communicate early and often. One of the problems I had working with issue boards and also with other PMs, is that I didn't know when the priority for something changed. And now I can see on the issue, on the epic, because if Jackie adds something here, I'll see a timestamp. I see a system note that something got added to this. But we also communicate in Slack, and we communicate synchronously and asynchronously multiple times. So I don't think at this point we have a planning date where we're going to talk about upcoming UX issues or efforts, whatever. We have the PM UX sync, we have the team calls, we have our one-on-ones, the think big. And I think every opportunity that we find, we use it to talk about and review our priorities and kind of give a status update on things other than the comments. And another great point is that although I'm probably, no one is assigned to this issue, but I'm essentially working on those. But the developers also get assigned, quote unquote, assigned to those issues. So for example, let's see here, identification of historical releases. There's no assignee, but I know that Sean is working on it because with the planning issues and also the need to wait issues that Jackie and the engineer managers prepare, they know that they have to look at this issue up until a certain date. They need to be on top of the changes. So in a way, this has been very helpful to keep the information centralized and also to serve a single source of truth for what we're doing. And right now we're having some conversations about adding weight to the UX issues. I actually tried to do that. I removed it from the description because it was just creating noise. But I want to also use this, this method to figure out what is my capacity, right? Let's say giving a milestone. How many UX issues am I tackling? What are the difficult parts? And how can Jackie and I have a conversation about sizing and checking the velocity for this? So that when the designs are ready, we add them clearly to those issues and that developers can consume this information, or that we can break them down into smaller pieces of designs or effort if the scope is too large. For example, group level CI/CD dashboard, it's something that I already know that it's huge, right? From a design point of view, if you want to think about it holistically. But if we're going to focus on the MVC, the scope would reflect that, and then the design weight is something different. So that's another thing. And yeah, we're also talking about, we actually talked today about the definition of done for UX. I know that other designers have similar issues. I think Nadia S, she has an issue about having a UX issue, a UX template, whatever. But we're just worked on identifying from our workflow, or like Jackie and I and the developers, what are the steps that we follow in the UX process that we need to check to, let's say, consider something done, right? To an issue complete. And how can we use these steps to measure the UX effort? So from this discussion, I'm not going to go further into this because I don't think we have the time, but we are talking about as well from that board, that visualization, how can we define what it needs to be an issue to be done. And I just want to highlight again that people can achieve similar results with different tools in different ways. I know Mike and I had a conversation just now, and Mike has his own planning board, his personal boards. You can do it in different ways. It's not, I don't want to prescribe like a solution. But this is what's been, yeah, I think it's pretty solid. We've been doing this for, I think, almost 2 months now, maybe more.
Yeah, I
And,
think we implemented the centralized Epic at the end of 12.7 so that we could deliver
yeah,
the designs for things that we just shipped this milestone. So we were 2 milestones ahead and we hit our targets. So the impact on engineering velocity and the reduction of cycle times has been palpable. Like we aren't spending so much time like figuring out what we're supposed to be doing. It really is they pick it up, they do it, and then it gets reviewed and it's in production. It's so smooth now. Which is a breath of fresh air because there's some issues that don't go through this process that we're still figuring out that take a long time.
Well, I love the UX definition of done issue. Looks really cool. I'll go over the details there, and yeah, looking forward to see the progress there. It's an amazing thing. I've been doing that in my past experiences, and that really helped us out to get in touch with other departments that have impact on our work, like technical writers, like testers, quality assurance, and make sure that we are getting in touch with everyone before yeah, we are getting something out of our hands. So thanks for going through that, Hayana, as well. Any questions from anyone else?
they love it. They have nothing to say because it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, let's circle back to the last conversation with this conversation of kind of mentioned like not being prescriptive, but going back to, you know, when you see a competitor, right? If we look at you as a competitor, if they are doing it right, you don't try and reinvent the wheel. You just steal it. And in my opinion, this is the kind of thing you just steal because it's fantastic.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to do with this is that, you know, just keep trying and iterating on our own process and see what works for us. For example, I know that it would be super helpful to have an issue template for release management so that whenever we create an issue, I can add the definition of done for UX as a requirement, right? And I think we just have to figure out what are the steps that we can take at this point without creating noise to other teams and other workflows. Because although this might have value to others, it shouldn't be like we shouldn't be blocked by I don't know, acceptance from I don't know, whoever approves issue templates, you know, to put this into practice. So I just wanted to raise this flag that yeah, it has been working for us. It will be nice to have the freedom to implement it in a workflow without trying to make it work for everyone, because that's part of our values. Like, let's keep doing what we're doing because we are delivering results. And I don't want to overcomplicate the process just for the sake of the process. So that's also what's in the back of my head.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Hayana. This is super cool. I think a nice beginning. Yeah. So, hey, I know that we have the sessions 45 minutes, and I asked that at every session. So for the next one, I just extended it to be 1 hour, but starting from the next one. So we plan for that. Anyone is okay to continue for 10 minutes, or should we just cut it off here and continue in 2 weeks? Who wants to stay? Show me a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Let's take another 10 minutes then. Yeah. Sorry, what's that?
This never happens. Everyone wants to stay in a call.
Yay! Yeah, so actually we don't have anything else specific on the agenda, but I want to make sure that to give the time, maybe something have come up while we have been watching through the things that Hayana was sharing. Anyone wants to share anything around the processes more? Because that was in the process section stuff. Okay, seems like no. We have another tool, like usually we talk about cross-stage effort. I don't know, any dependencies or any issues. Yeah, I don't know, maybe Juan, you want to talk about that case
Yeah.
that you've been trying to deal with?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that. So I actually this was mentioned on on the UX call this week, but basically we are now in the process of trying to see how to revamp or improve the MR widgets in the MR view. And that's a particularly interesting area of the product because the MR widgets in theory are owned by Create and are consumed by other groups, right? So it's this weird UX feature that, I don't know, it's not definitely owned specifically by anyone. So right now what we're doing is that we're trying to set the ground for collaborating on this, and we are having meetings. I think the group that has the most immediate need right now is Secure, because they're having issues with their MR widget not being visible enough in terms of showing when a vulnerability happens. So they want to make some changes. So I think that the way that we have been approaching this is that we're trying to set up a meeting that doesn't have a cadence or anything. We just do it ad hoc and we talk about the initiative. So everyone who has some stake on the MR widgets is aware of what's going on or what type of changes are going to be done to the MR widget. I'm kind of the hinge right now for that thing in terms of I am the one organizing the meetings and I am the one who is triaging things. The only reason for that is that testing owns a lot of those widgets, but that there's no other reason besides that. So this is still very soon from, like, if you think about it from a process perspective, it's very soon for me to tell what's the right process to deal with these, but it's there, you know, it's happening. There's going to be some meetings, and I think people are, if you wanna show up to one of those meetings, it's totally encouraged. So I'll try to put those meetings in the channel or something for anyone who can or want to go. But yeah, it's very early. I don't know what's gonna come up from this. I think mainly the idea here is to find efficiencies when it comes to working with other groups and when it comes to touching these areas of the product that seem to be owned by someone, but they're really not owned by anyone, you know? So that's the situation. I don't know if that helps, but that's what I have for that.
There are a few comments in the agenda. So I wanted to vocalize that I think there is a MR widgets Slack channel was created, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
correct.
And then Hayana's suggestion is to put these meetings to the shared UX calendar so it's visible to everyone.
Yeah, because for example, I worked on a bunch of changes to the MR widgets over the last year or so. And I know that in progressive delivery and sometimes in even release management, like deploy freezes, it's going to touch request. So I think it would be nice to, I love the idea of have this centralized place or this guild that we can go to and just communicate that changes are being planned, because most of the times what I really need is input from someone that has more knowledge about the importance of other, items on the interface or other attributes on the UI that can conflict with what I'm doing. And it's very difficult to find, I know it's Pedro most of the time, and now I know you also work with it. But it's going to be awesome. And I'd like to be more involved.
For sure. I'll add it to the UX calendar, and you feel free to come in, give your thoughts on past developments about these. I think one interesting thing about it's not necessarily about the MR widgets, but I think in general, when it comes to these type of initiatives, where I'm thinking one interesting thing is that we should try to see if this model works at the cross stage level, so we can leverage this at the group level between us, because I know there's areas in our stage that we all have a stake on, So one that comes to my mind is the settings of CI/CD. Everyone has something that they own there, right? So we own it by section. So I own the runners one, you might all own the variables one, So, but But if I make a change that basically deviates from the current UX of that page, then it starts looking kind of like broken, right? So if what I'm trying to say here is that if we can establish a model for cross stage, then we can maybe establish a model for cross group, you know, within our stage, and we can also identify areas where everyone has a stake, you know. That's just an example. I know there's plenty more.
Yeah, I think also in the future it would be nice, the same way that engineers have with specific product area, also find a way to communicate better internally who owns what or who's responsible for what. I just added here to the agenda this page with features that has like the name of the features and what group or stage on GitLab owns it. So it's secure, and then release management then has a page, whatever. But I think in general, as designers, we need to get better at just not even owning things, but letting people know that we own things.
Right.
And one of the things I was thinking is that engineers do that by adding to their GitLab profile or the GitLab the status, like for example, merge request expert, or you know, a feature flags expert, so that people know that Mike is the feature flags and the pages guy. You are the merge request guy. So other than on top of creating this platform for having these conversations, but figuring out to let people know that we
Totally.
care for this product area.
No, I like that idea for sure. I think that's you articulated pretty well. That's another area where we can improve, right? If you can identify who, because it's not like the ultimate direct responsible concept, but it's almost like the person who might give you a direction. You know, I don't know what's a good analogy for that, but yeah, it's kind of like a someone who is guiding you, you know, through. It's like the Sherpa of the feature, you know.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's an awesome suggestion.
For the merge request thing, it's a bit of a hot potato right now of who's dealing with merge trains, but I would think whoever does end up taking that should probably be involved in those conversations, or at least be like known that this thing is going on. So right now, you know, it was in progressive delivery, but it's going to verify is why it's a bit of a hot potato thing. So I have one issue that I'm working on it right now, but it will be going to verifier soon. So
I think the first step, if you ask me for, I'm not saying that this is perfect. The process it's in the works. I think the first step should be joining the channel and doing something as simple as like, I want you guys to be aware of this issue. I think it will give everyone a lot of, it will be pretty useful, you know, just to have visibility of issues of that, of like that, you know. So if you can do that, I will really appreciate it.
okay, yep, we'll do. And then the other area that seems to be a hotbed that is probably a candidate for this is variables lately. I feel like everybody and their brother is all over variables, right? We should probably have a variables channel at this point.
Yeah, and it's weird because when we look at secrets management, there's this overlap of like, if we're going to transition all variables over to be stored in Vault, or if it's only going to be certain kinds of variables. So if it's going to be all variables, then obviously it then makes variables a part of secrets management and it goes over the release management side. But variables are so inextricably connected to the create phase and the deployment and everything that has to do with CI. So it really is like, how would we pigeonhole variables to be inside secrets management when it's such a universal thing?
Yeah. It's there's a lot going on with variables for sure. And then even some of the proposed stuff of like, okay, we can't do it this way, we're gonna do it that way. A lot of that felt very release management-y, even though we were doing it in progressive delivery. So But it's a good one. Hopefully Juan gives us the blueprint here, and then we can.
Then we can figure it out.
You notice the theme of things for Mike in this meeting. Like, I just want to steal stuff, right? Like, I want to steal your issue. I want to steal Juan's process. I'm all about stealing
Pressure.
stuff.
But the same way, I'm not sure what happened to the dashboards after, if any of you folks were involved with that, or if you know what happened to that, if it went someplace to get. But we can also find a ways, like it can be Slack, of course, but I would say document on GitLab so it doesn't die, doesn't get erased. But to just document like the problems that we have right now, for example, with variables, right? And what steps have, for example, different take to build it for their specific use cases. Because I know, for example, that Verify just deliver the component in view, right? But I'm not 100% aware of what the vision for variables is and how would that impact we already have on the pipeline, for example, for release management. So it would be nice to have just a place where we can find that information without having to go to the category, maturity base, whatever, to talk about the UX. And I mentioned the dashboards because there was a guy that was the design manager, now he's on marketing. I always forget his name, whatever, that guy. Ex-UX manager.
Shane?
Shane, yes. Shane, he was, sorry, Shane, if you see this, he was leading these efforts to, look at the similar problems and to standardize dashboards and to be more holistic about the user experience, but we can do something similar for variables, for example.
Yeah, and I think to answer the question on like where things may go to die, I do feel like anywhere where there isn't a clear product manager, it dies. Like, for example, Runbooks, it died until I was like, I need this for release. And then now I'm kind of managing it, but it's not under release management. It's in configure, but I'm defining the vision for it and I'm building it. So I don't really know how that model will change or shift, or if that's what we're going to do with variables, but you're totally right. We don't have a place to document all that stuff.
And I think that's exactly what happened. Unified dashboards, that's the point, because it's just a bunch of designers trying to unify dashboards and there's no actual from product or engineering. I'm going to share this in the document.
Yeah.
To make up this, I add it here. I'm also going to add to the chat. Oops, I actually added not yet, everyone. So how can we put the right amount of effort into it without just generating a bunch of ideas that are not going to become part of the software? That's also another concern I have, because I can identify, for example, with variables, I'm not going there unless someone is actually taking that seriously, because I know I'm going to crash and burn. So it's not just a design effort.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I will give it. Thanks for sharing. Maybe I can give it a first look and then see if there is we can at least like find project manager who would be willing to help us there, or I don't know. If you can share the issue from Shane, Hannah, that would be useful as well. You can just at least like keep an eye on that, so we maybe come back to this in the future, this discussion. But hey, everyone. Already 1 minute of the time. I know that I hold you already a little bit. So yeah, unless anybody wants to add anything super urgently, I probably will just let everyone go.
Thank you all for letting me join you. I always feel like the creepy PM. I'm like, hey.
No, but it's much richer, the conversation. I think it's awesome. And yeah, help us find the right people that we have to chase for this type of efforts, Jackie. So stay with us.
Thanks for joining and thanks for sharing nice stuff. Have a nice weekend, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye.